All right. So part three, that's what we're looking at here. Our third time here, looking at our third time looking at chapter 7 of our book. I'm gonna run through where we stopped last Sunday. And pretty much ended with this slide last Sunday, talking about how each generation deserves the next generation that it gets. Each generation gives back to the generation that comes after it. We thus deserve the generation that comes after us because that the generation did not draw from the sky. That generation is what we created, either actively or passively. We create the generation after us. We are the responsible party for the generation that comes after us, right? It is not a given what the generation after us will be or not be. It's a function of who we are and what we give birth to. We are the responsible party for the generation that comes and is coming after us, right? And that is what parenting is all about. Parenting is taking responsibility for the next generation, and that generation becomes our report card on how well we did or did not do in our parenting work, in our parenting drive. That was the keynote we ended with last week. So we'll go on here and we'll say that this often requires fortitude on the part of the parents because the child will resist. Things are always honest at the beginning. When we're introducing our children to something, uh, beginning is not necessarily easy, especially when that child, again, we talked about the brain development of a child, from conception till about age 5 plus minus, before the prefrontal cortex begins to be developed. A child will take in everything you give to it, hook, line, and sinker, because that part of the brain that questions is not yet developed. Not it begins to be developed at that age 5 plus minus, but that's not fully developed until we're about 25 plus minus thereabout. But that point where it begins to be developed, is that point where the child begins to be inquisitive. It begins to question, begins to resist the things that we're trying to give to the child. Before then, that child is open, right? That child is open, does not have any gate to the things that we impute or we're trying to indoctrinate to the child. You know, uh, Before then, easy. After that, the child begins to question, right? But then all of this is still formative years of the child. So we need to we need to know our child and find out how it's best suited to introduce things that might not look tasteful today, but it's what our child needs in his or her life tomorrow. So there's a bit of skill, as it were, touch that we need to put to it, to making it happen, right? So tenacious practice is crucial to excellence, right? For you to be excellent and or good in anything, you need to practice. Nobody becomes an expert from heaven. Nobody came from heaven and is suddenly an expert. We all get to learn whatever it is we're good at when we came here. Even if we have a tendency or a tilting towards that thing, we still need to exercise ourselves in it to break all the inertia, and make it second over and 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 over again till it becomes second nature to you. Doing this is a bit becoming second nature to me because I got to do it on a consistent level, right? So it's becoming second nature. I don't have those initial anxieties of being extra be careful that I'm prepared already. It's just who I am because I'm exercising myself in it. And that's how a guru gets given birth to. And though that applies to every human being, you can imagine that also applies to our children as they're going through their formative years, right? It's easier for them at that point in time, uh, because they don't have a lot of distractions. Like I have a lot of distractions here. I'm supposed to have finished reading this book from last meeting. I only picked it up again today, since last Sunday. Not because I'm lazy, not because I don't want to do it, but the reality is I have 1,001 things going on in my life as an adult. Tomorrow I start on a new topic. I do a prayer meeting Mondays to Fridays. I start on a new subtopic on the teachings I gotta do at that meeting, and I've not started at all. But I have to be ready before the meeting tomorrow. So imagine I have to spend time to get ready my notes for that next set of teachings. And but as a child, you're able to focus better. You don't have all the distractions, what we call adult distractions. So we can help our children gain proficiency, early on in their life. And that's what the scripture says. It says, train up a child in the way that child ought to go. Whatever it is that you see in the future of that child, the time to prepare that child is when that child is still a child. Help that child to gain the proficiency, in the childy time. They're able to build in those hours, to get the expertise, to get the second nature in them. They don't have the distractions that adults have, and then they're able to peak, earlier. They're able to peak earlier and go further than while they still have years ahead of them to use that peak, like an adult, learning, and maybe when you peak, it's about the time you're ready to leave the scene. So we need to help our children, whatever it is that we want them to be, whatever we see God's hand in their life, we need to invest in them as while they're yet children, so that when they're at that age where whenever it is for them to shine, they can easily shine. It comes out natural. That scripture is simply saying whatever you invest in them will show forth. There'll be an harvest, whether you intentionally do it or not, whether you responsibly sow it or not, there's going to be a harvest. If you do nothing, there'll be an harvest of the nothing. If you do something, there'll be an harvest of the something, right? We are responsible for the children that we raise, right? So once a child starts to excel at something, he or she gets praise, adoration, and satisfaction. This builds confidence and makes the once not funny activity fun. Everybody likes what he or she is praised in. If you're good at something and people respect you for that thing, you want to do more. Even for the little that I got to do here, I want to do more because I think I'm making a difference. I see in my life that I'm making a difference in my life. Guess what? I want to do more so that I can make a difference in my life. I see I'm making a difference in some people's life. Guess what? I want to do more, right? We as humans, we love to do the things that make us shine, right? For as long as we're not depriving anybody of their own right. We all love to do the things that make us shine. Guess what? Children want to do that also. But that shining doesn't come at first. You have to pay the price to get to the shining part, right? Uh, I've had to invest years to get to this place where I can speak to you, not having to shout, not having to try to create an impression, you know. You see, I'm just relaxed doing this and expressing myself. I wasn't born this way. This comes out of having done it for years. This is my fifth year doing it. I've done 4 years. We celebrated 4 years doing this last month. This is my fifth year doing this. So you can imagine that I'm comfortable doing it. So it's easier for me to do it. And so same thing for our children. Uh, So once and just that, once your child goes past that place and is able to feel good about themselves, then they do more. But you have to break through that time before they get that praise. You have to help them go through that because it takes a bit of commitment to do that. And in the foolishness that's abounding in the child might resist going through that initial time of getting to know how to do the thing. So that's where parenting come. That's where parenting come to help them, exercise the discipline needed to go back past that initial inertia to get into that place of expertise.